Now we're going across to Tony Jones, who has a Queensland Senator in George Brandis on his panel with Penny Wong. Tony?
Yeah, George Brandis, you better tell us what the Queensland story is from your point of view. I think last I looked at 5.8 or 5.9% swing to the coalition across the state. But give us a sense of how it's looking overall from your point of view.
Well, it's looking encouraging in Queensland. Of course, the problem with trying to apply uniform swings to Queensland is because of the very regional nature of the state. All those coastal seats in central and northern Queensland have their own dynamics. But 5.8% swing sounds about pretty much consistent with our expectations. I think I said earlier when we were speaking, Tony, that there was a palpable sense of movement away from the Labor Party in and around Brisbane in the last week, and that seems to be the case. I've got some up-to-date figures from Brisbane, which shows us with a 1.3% margin over the Labor Party with 19 of the 40 booths counted. That's consistent with about a 6% swing. Now, if on a 5.8% swing, if you applied it uniformly across the state, and as I've said, you can't necessarily do that, but for the sake of the exercise, a 5% swing in Queensland would see the coalition gain 10 seats from the Labor Party. Now, I'm not predicting that will happen, but that's the order of magnitude.
Let's hear from Penny Wong, and we heard Nick Minchin earlier talk about the tide in Queensland coming in for Labor under Kevin Rudd. Now it seems to be going right back out again. The question is, how far will it go out? And give us your sense, first of all, of Queensland, the situation you're in.
Well, obviously, the results in Queensland are difficult for us so far. I mean, we have seen some pretty significant swings so far in the results coming in. Having said that, obviously there's still a lot of vote to count. I think George is right on this count, that obviously you get very substantial regional variations in Queensland. We've seen that already in some of the seats you've just put up. A significant difference, obviously, between the swing in Herbert, for example, and the swing that was up before in terms of Arch Bevis's seat of Brisbane. So we knew all along that Queensland was going to be a tough state for us.
Did you know how tough New South Wales is going to be? Because we're now hearing a 7.7% swing in Lindsay, a seat you held by more than 6%. I mean, that's outer Western Sydney moving against you.
Oh, I think we always knew that those seats in Western Sydney were tough for Labor for a whole range of reasons. We've been campaigning pretty hard in those seats. Dave Bradbury and Lindsay's been campaigning very hard. Obviously, New South Wales, again, you've got some regional variation. You've got Page, which looks like Janelle will hold that seat, and I haven't seen many other results from some of the other seats, but Lindsay.
What do you put
Banks
this down to, though?
also,
Are we talking about Tony Abbott sort of basically winning back what were once called the Howard Battlers and may now be called the Abbott Battlers?
Oh, well, look, I'm sure people will for a long time talk about why certain things have happened in certain parts of Australia. I think certainly you'd have to say there is some impact from people's views about state governments. That's certainly, I think, something that we picked up on, and I'm sure Mr Abbott has picked it up as well. I think some of the things he's been saying. But we're still fighting in those seats, and we'll see whether or not we can hold sufficient of the ones in Western Sydney. I hope we can.
George Brandis, New South Wales. Now, you combine these two stories, New South Wales and Queensland, what do you get?
Well, you get a very unpredictable situation, and as I heard Nick Minchin say a moment ago, it may well be that Victoria decides this election. The Labor Party really had to claw back a few seats in Victoria and South Australia to offset the anticipated losses, in particular in Queensland and New South Wales. Now, the early mail from South Australia suggests that neither of our marginals in that state, Sturt and Boothby, will fall to Labor, although Boothby is not out of the woods for us yet. Victoria...
But you're feeling confident about Christopher Pyne in Sturt by the
I've always felt confident about Christopher Pyne. He's probably the best constituency member in the country, and in a city where all the opinion polls showed that there was a swing away from us, and where Newspoll, for example, this morning had a 3.6% swing away from us across South Australia. To get a swing to him in Sturt is quite a remarkable achievement.
Yep, Penny Wong gives the South Australians perspective, if you can, because if there's a status quo in South Australia, that's not going to help Labor at all, at a time when Queensland and New South Wales would be moving against you.
Well, look, obviously we were hopeful of trying to get some gains in South Australia. I think what we'll see in South Australia is a high Labor vote, a lot of it, unfortunately, in the seats which we already hold. And the swing to us may well be in seats that Labor already holds. The early mail obviously would suggest that Sturt will be tough for us to win. Boothby perhaps slightly remains more of a chance, but the early figures are not quite as positive for us as we would hope. But the night's still young. Annabelle's run a very good campaign in that seat, as has Rick Sarr in Sturt. So
we'll just go back to George Brandis briefly. You're getting late mail as we're talking. We'll come to you and then we'll disappear from us.
Well, just some further information about seats that really weren't much in contention. Ryan and Wright, which I'm told the Liberal National Party is now claiming. I don't know if they've been allocated to you, but those were seats that, of course, we saw some difficulties in each of those seats, but those are seats that I'm instructed to claim.
All right, well, we'll hear from Anthony Green on that shortly. Thanks to both of you.
And Anthony Green is instructed to bring us up to date on the big picture, which is now starting to become much more
well, in fact, I just got a message from our online people saying, can we turn on the prediction yet? And I said no. The figure I've got in the computer at the moment is saying Labor 75 seats, which is a dead heat. There's no WA figures yet. And there's a lot of seats. The bottom of frame at the moment is showing Labor on 63 and the LNP on 53, I think it is. That's because there's quite a number of seats the LNP are ahead in, or the Liberals and Nationals are ahead in, but haven't won.
We'll win at least 3 in the West. We'll win Freo, Perth and Brand.
It's the change that matters. It's the change that matters.
Come on, let's get serious.
Kerry, I think it'd be worth looking at Solomon with 7.3% of the vote counted in that Darwin seat. It shows a 2.1% swing to the Country Liberal Party and therefore a Liberal gain, which could be very important in the scheme of things. And in Boothby now with 6.3% counted, it's only a 0.9% swing to Labor, which means we'll retain that seat with relative comfort on that basis.
One of the Solomon booths is the Army Barracks.
True. Yeah, but 7.7 counted is.
So
we'll be here for a long time tonight. Some of the seats like Greenway Labor is currently behind in. The difficulty of doing our booth comparison model, which we use on election night, is that there's been major redistributions in seats, and a seat like Greenway has been massively redistributed. And I've got 6 booths of the preference count, and you need to know which electorate they were in last time. So it'll be a while before we get a real figure on that sort of seat.
all right, well, we'll continue our seat run, and we're going to go back to Dawson in North Queensland. This is around Mackay and inland from there. James Bidgood was the ALP member. He's retired. It's marginally Labor, 2.6%. We've got 36% of the vote counted.
Yes, and we've got quite a sample of booths. There's 77 booths in this election. We've got 34 first preference booths, 18 with preference counts. George Christensen is still well ahead. The bigger urban booths don't come in till later in the evening, which may make a difference. But that's a 4.4% swing to the LNP, and George Christensen will go on to win the seat. There hasn't been a lot of change to the electoral boundaries in that seat. It's still saying in doubt. Yes, it's only likely. It's not definitely given away. It's not pushed it over the edge yet. So there's still a bit of hope there for the Labor Party candidate, but those figures are getting very close to giving it away to the LNP.
OK, the seat of Capricornia, based around Rockhampton on the central Queensland coast, which we haven't looked at yet tonight. Now, this is on paper a safe Labor seat. Kirsten Livermore has held it for Labor since 1998. We've got 25% of the vote counted.
But it is the biggest mining seat in Queensland.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing in Kirsten Livermore, we're going to win the seat, includes Rockhampton and lots of mining towns at the back of Rockhampton. Kirsten Livermore's well ahead on the first preference votes. When you look at the swing by booth, there's an 8.2% swing there. The Labor Party will hold Capricornia, but that's a substantial swing in the electorate. OK, the seat of Dixon in Brisbane's outer northern suburbs, and Peter Dutton, the Liberal member for Dixon, will be a happy chap tonight. The redistribution had given this marginally to Labor,
but with 50% of the vote counted, he's back.
Yeah, he's got no difficulty in the end. He's well ahead on the first preference votes there from Fiona McNamara, who he defeated last time. 11% for the Greens, which is not a bad vote for them in that part of Greater Brisbane. Swing of 6%, and so no difficulty at all for Peter Dutton being returned as the member for Dixon.
Okay, now the seat of Longman, this was another really interesting seat for a couple of reasons, but based around Caboolture, Bribie Island, so stretching up from the northern edge of Brisbane to the south of Sunshine Coast. 44% of the vote counted in a very marginal Labor seat held by John Sullivan.
Yes, and what we're seeing here is Wyatt Roy is well ahead on these first preference votes. His first preference vote's down 1%, the Labor Party primary vote's down 9%. Now, I haven't got a lot of preference counts in this booth, only a small number have reported those, but they're indicating a 6% swing, but I would think that is correct based upon what I'm seeing in the shift in the primary votes. So Wyatt Roy, I haven't actually checked this, I think he would become the youngest MP ever elected.
That's right.
He'd be, yeah,
20, yes, he'll be the youngest ever elected.
And this is the first time he's voted.
Indeed.
In a federal election.
Good to see the Liberal Party representing the youth vote.
Nick, have you got any more information, any more?
No, I don't. I'm just trying to get the nationwide picture again just to see what's going on there, but so I don't have anything to add, I'm sorry.
There's a big swing on in Queensland, obviously, but there was a question mark about how well the coalition was prepared for this election in terms of having to deal with the two-party, the Liberal National merger. And that wasn't all beer and skittles, was it?
No, it certainly wasn't. I mean, I'm a supporter of the Liberal and National parties merging in principle, but the LNP was a difficult gestation, and campaigning for the first time in a federal election was always going to be an interesting issue, and there were issues with various candidates, and of course the issue in Ryan. We should have a look at Ryan, I suppose, and see what's happening there.
Yeah.
But so far so good. We're seeing pretty consistently a 6% swing to the Liberal Party. People raise doubts about Wyatt Roy, but I think he's going to win this seat, and from what I know of him, he's going to be a very effective young member. So really the Queensland result is looking very good for us.
Well, coming in at that age, not only would he be the youngest in history, but he might... I'm not going to be around, Nick, but if he's an effective member, he could set another record.
Well, just to say, if we win Hasluck in Western Australia, we'll have the Liberal Party will be responsible for the first Aboriginal elected to the House of Representatives, and now with Wyatt Roy, the youngest member ever elected to the House of Representatives, quite historic.
And the first Catholic Prime Minister, if you do all of those.
We won't go there.
Oh, why not?
Catholic Liberal.
Stephen, have you got anything fresh?
I think Anthony's earlier point that we may end up seeing this election tonight determined in the West is becoming more likely. I think if we can hold Hasluck and hold Swan, that would really relieve the pressure. I think, without naming them, I think we've clearly lost 6 or 7 seats. I think we're at risk in 10 or 11 more. That's getting us right to the brink of the real and notional seats. I think we picked up McEwen. I think we're in the hunt in Latrobe and Aston. But we could end up looking at how we go in Hasluck and Swan and Canning as being really crucial.
And you're not absolutely chock full of confidence about any of them, are you?
Well, on all the available evidence, you would proceed from the starting point that we would just fall below, but all of the internal and external polls essentially had them anywhere from 48-52 to 50-50. So, Alana McTiernan in Canning could snatch it given her standing as a local candidate. In Sharon Jackson, we've got the local member incumbency, and I think that will count. In Swan, we've run a very good campaign and got a good candidate, and I think we are in the hunt there. But those three may now end up being quite crucial to the overall complexion of the night. I still think that, given the pre-polls and postals, that there'll be a bit of work going on in the course of the week. With the pre-polls, we do have some of them counted tonight for the first time, but not all of them.
I just get the feeling that